Welcome back, Intrigue Seekers, to the Peak Intrigue Podcast, Episode 3, for anyone counting at home.
3 already.
I know, it's going by fast.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Exactly. And today, we are diving deep into the world of Marcus Aurelius.
Oh, interesting.
But this is not your typical emperor bio.
Okay.
We're going beyond the marble busts and military campaigns to explore the mind of a man who ruled an empire while grappling with life's biggest questions.
Now that is a challenge, I'm sure.
It is. It is. And, it's fascinating to consider how he balanced the immense responsibilities of leadership with his deep commitment to philosophy.
Right, and particularly Stoicism.
Exactly. And Stoicism is having, a resurgence these days.
Oh, absolutely. It's so popular.
Even though it originated in ancient Greece.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like people are drawn to its emphasis on virtue, reason, and finding peace amidst the chaos,
Especially our modern world.
Yeah, our crazy modern world.
Yes.
So it seems to offer like a timeless roadmap for navigating these challenging times.
Definitely. And speaking of challenges, Marcus Aurelius's path to power was anything but straightforward.
Okay, let's unpack that.
Sure.
So I know he was born into a wealthy and politically connected family in Rome.
Right, in 121 AD.
Okay.
During the Pax Romana.
So good time to be alive.
A relatively peaceful and prosperous time, yes.
But becoming emperor wasn't exactly a walk in the park, right?
Not at all. It all started with Emperor Hadrian, who needed to choose a successor but had no direct heir.
Okay.
His initial choice, Lucius Cionius Commodus, didn't exactly sit well with the Senate.
So right off the bat, there's drama.
Always drama in Roman politics.
I know you can't get away from it.
Things got, well, messy.
Messy how? Don't leave us hanging.
Well, let's just say there were forced suicides involved.
Oh, my goodness.
Roman imperial succession was a high-stakes game.
Yeah, no kidding.
When Lucius Cionius Commodus died shortly after being adopted, Hadrian had to choose a new heir, ultimately settling on Antoninus Pius, Marcus Aurelius' uncle.
Okay, so Antoninus Pius becomes emperor, but there's a catch.
There's always a catch.
I feel it coming.
He had to adopt both Marcus Aurelius and Lucius Verus, the son of Hadrian's previous heir.
Talk about complicated family dynamic.
Oh, I bet family dinners at the imperial palace were interesting.
I can only imagine.
But in all seriousness, this arrangement set the stage for Marcus Aurelius' eventual rise to power.
And speaking of power, if your website's feeling a bit powerless due to limited hosting,
Ooh, good one.
you might want to check out today's sponsor.
Yes.
They are offering free, unlimited hosting, which could free you up to ponder some philosophical dilemmas of your own.
There you go.
So you can find their information in the description below.
Back to Antoninus Pius.
Okay.
He was known as a peaceful and stable ruler.
Okay.
He focused on strengthening Rome's infrastructure and legal system rather than military conquest.
So not exactly the warrior emperor type.
Not quite.
Did that influence Marcus Aurelius' upbringing and preparation for leadership?
Absolutely. While Marcus Aurelius received a rigorous education
I can imagine.
in rhetoric, literature, philosophy, and even law, he wasn't necessarily being groomed for a life on the battlefield,
Okay.
but he did learn a great deal about governance and administration from Antoninus Pius,
Yeah.
who was a wise and capable ruler.
I mean, that makes sense. Set him up for success.
Exactly.
It's interesting to me that Marcus Aurelius was drawn to philosophy,
Right, from a young age.
particularly Stoicism.
Mm-hmm.
Even as a child, he embraced a simple lifestyle, much to his mother's dismay.
I can imagine her saying, "Why are you sleeping on the floor? You're a Roman aristocrat."
Right, get up here in this nice bed.
Exactly.
But it seems he was always a serious and introspective individual,
Definitely.
deeply interested in questions of virtue and morality.
Mm-hmm.
And this early interest in Stoicism would profoundly shape his life and his reign.
Oh, absolutely.
So when Antoninus Pius died in 161 AD, Marcus Aurelius became emperor.
Mm-hmm.
But he insisted on sharing power with Lucius Verus.
It was a rather unusual move.
Yeah. Why do you think he did that?
It was likely a combination of factors. I think he felt obligated to honor Hadrian's original wishes by elevating Lucius Verus,
Okay.
but it probably also reflected Marcus Aurelius's own personality.
Okay.
He wasn't one to seize power for himself,
Mm-hmm.
and he seemed genuinely committed to a more collaborative approach to leadership.
Which is interesting considering the times.
He was.
It's interesting how they balanced their different personalities and approaches to ruling.
Right.
You have Marcus Aurelius, the serious Stoic,
Mm-hmm.
and Lucius Verus, who, from what I've read, was a bit more,
A bit more fun-loving?
shall we say.
Yes, let's say that.
So how did this unlikely duo handle ruling an empire together?
Well, surprisingly, their partnership was marked by cooperation and mutual respect.
Okay, that is a surprise.
They faced numerous challenges together, from natural disasters to wars on multiple fronts,
Oh my
and
goodness.
they seemed to navigate these crises quite effectively.
Give us some examples. What kind of disasters and wars did they have to deal with?
Well, right off the bat, the Tiber River flooded severely,
Oh, really?
causing widespread damage, famine, and even a malaria outbreak.
Talk about a rough start.
Right out of the gate,
Yikes.
they responded by tapping into the city's grain supply and treasury to provide relief to those affected.
Okay, so trying to be proactive.
Yes, definitely.
What else?
Then they had to deal with an earthquake in Cyzicus
An earthquake.
and a war brewing in the east.
Oh boy.
The Parthian king, Vologases V,
Oh.
seized the opportunity to attack Armenia, which was under Roman protection.
So an earthquake and a war. It sounds
Mhm.
like somebody hit the random challenge button on the Roman Empire simulator.
It does, doesn't it?
How do they handle these military threats, especially considering neither of them had much military experience?
That's where their differing personalities came into play.
Okay.
Lucius Verus, being the more action-oriented of the two, was sent to the east to lead the Roman forces against the Parthians.
Okay.
Marcus Aurelius stayed in Rome to manage the day-to-day affairs of the empire.
So Lucius Verus got to be the warrior,
He did.
while Marcus Aurelius played the role of administrator.
Yes.
How did that work out for them?
Well, Lucius Verus enjoyed the pleasures of Antioch, the Syrian capital, a bit too much, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
But he also took his military role seriously, training and disciplining the troops who had grown complacent after years of peace.
So maybe he wasn't a complete disaster as a military leader.
No, he had his moments.
What about Marcus Aurelius back in Rome? Was he just twiddling his thumbs while Lucius Verus was off having a grand old time in the East?
Not at all.
What was he up to?
He used this time to implement significant legal reforms, particularly in the areas of slavery guardianship for orphans and the selection of provincial councils.
Wow. So he was reforming the legal system while also dealing with natural disasters and a war on the other side of the empire.
He was a busy man.
This guy knew how to multitask.
He did. He was a dedicated and hardworking ruler committed to improving the lives of his citizens.
Okay.
And on top of all that,
Oh no, there's more.
there's more. He was also grappling with the Antonine Plague, a devastating pandemic that swept through the empire.
Oh no.
It's believed to have been brought back by the troops returning from the east.
So a pandemic on top of everything else. Talk about a stressful time to be emperor.
It was an incredibly challenging period,
I can only imagine.
but it also revealed Marcus Aurelius's resilience and commitment to his Stoic principles.
Okay.
He faced adversity with remarkable composure,
Wow.
and he sought to guide the empire through these crises with wisdom and compassion. It really is remarkable how he managed to maintain his composure in the middle of all that chaos.
Well, I mean, I guess that's where his Stoic philosophy comes in.
Right, exactly.
It emphasizes, focusing on what you can control, accepting what you can't, and striving for virtue in all circumstances.
Which is much easier said than done, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. But even when faced with war and disease and political turmoil, he found solace and guidance in Stoicism.
He did.
It's amazing how he was able to apply those ancient philosophical principles to the very real and brutal challenges of running an empire.
Yeah, it really speaks volumes about his character and his intellect.
It does.
He wasn't just a philosopher in his spare time. This was a way of life for him.
Yeah.
He was actively trying to live out his Stoic ideals in the most demanding role imaginable.
It makes his famous meditations all the more intriguing to me.
Oh, for sure.
To think that he was writing these personal reflections on Stoicism while on campaign leading armies and dealing with all these crises.
I mean, can you imagine trying to find the time to journal
Yeah.
with all of that going on?
I can barely find the time to journal now.
I know.
And I'm not running an empire.
Exactly.
No.
But the meditations offer us, this unique window into the mind of an emperor who is also a philosopher.
Mm-hmm.
They're full of practical wisdom and insights into human nature that are still relevant today.
And they're so beautifully written.
Oh, they are.
I mean, he was a gifted writer.
He was.
I'm curious, though, with Lucius Verus off fighting the Parthians in the east,
Right.
did that create any tension or power struggles between them?
Well, surprisingly, it seems their relationship remained pretty stable.
Okay.
While Lucius Verus was away, Marcus Aurelius focused on governing Rome.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Lucius Verus returned, they celebrated a joint triumph for their victories.
Okay, so they were able to kind of put their egos aside
Yeah, it seems so.
and work together for the good of the empire.
Yeah, for the most part.
So they managed to make the co-emperorship work,
They did.
despite their differences.
For a time.
But then tragedy struck.
Sadly, yes.
Right.
Lucius Verus died in 169 AD while he was traveling back to Rome,
Oh, no.
possibly from a stroke.
Oh, wow.
This left Marcus Aurelius as the sole emperor facing all these mounting challenges alone.
It's interesting, though, that some sources even suggest that there was foul play involved in Lucius Verus's death.
Oh, really?
There were whispers of Marcus Aurelius, his wife Faustina, or even his daughter Lucilla being behind it.
Wow.
I mean, Roman power struggles could get pretty intense.
They could. It's certainly a possibility.
Yeah.
Given the stakes involved in Roman imperial politics.
Right.
But there's no concrete evidence to support those claims.
Okay.
And it's more likely that Lucius Verus just succumbed to illness.
Okay. So probably just natural causes.
Probably.
But regardless of the circumstances, his death thrust Marcus Aurelius into a new phase of his reign.
Yes.
One where he had to shoulder the full burden of leadership alone.
He did.
And these were tumultuous times, right?
Oh, yes.
Remember those Germanic tribes pushing at the empire's northern borders?
Mm-hmm.
The situation escalated, didn't it?
It did.
Leading to the Marcomannic Wars,
Yes.
which would dominate the rest of his reign.
They would.
The Marcomannic Wars. Tell us more about those. What was at stake for the Roman Empire?
Well, these weren't just skirmishes. These were large-scale conflicts
Okay.
that really threatened the stability and the security of the Roman Empire.
So a big deal.
A very big deal.
So Marcus Aurelius, this philosopher emperor,
Mm-hmm.
found himself having to lead armies into battle. It seems like a far cry from his, contemplative nature.
It was a stark contrast, to be sure.
Yeah.
But he understood the gravity of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
These weren't just wars for territory,
Mm-hmm.
They were wars for the survival of the Roman way of life,
Okay.
the Pax Romana that had defined generations.
So he felt a responsibility to protect that.
Absolutely.
And he was personally involved in the fighting, wasn't he?
He was.
Didn't he spend years away from Rome campaigning on the northern frontiers?
He did. He led his armies from the front,
Wow.
demonstrating courage and resilience in the face of brutal conditions and fierce enemies.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
It's important to remember this wasn't a war of choice for him.
Right.
It was a war of necessity.
Out of obligation.
Yes.
It makes you wonder how he reconciled his philosophical beliefs with the harsh realities of warfare.
Well, that's a question historians and philosophers have been debating for centuries.
I bet.
Did his stoicism help him endure the horrors of war?
Yeah.
Did it guide his strategic decisions?
Or did he struggle to reconcile the violence with his ideals?
Yeah. Tough questions.
Very tough questions.
I guess we can only speculate.
We can.
But it's fascinating to consider how his philosophical outlook might have shaped his actions on the battlefield.
Absolutely.
There's a famous incident during the Marcomannic Wars known as the rain miracle.
Oh, yes.
So the Roman army, led by Marcus Aurelius,
Right.
was trapped and surrounded by the Quadi,
Oh.
facing imminent defeat.
Ah, good.
They were desperate for water,
Oh, wow.
on the verge of collapse.
Yeah.
When miraculously a massive thunderstorm erupted,
What?
providing them with much-needed relief and allowing them to turn the tide of battle.
A rain miracle.
Yeah,
It sounds like something out of a myth or a legend.
it does.
Was it seen as divine intervention at the time?
Oh, absolutely. It was widely interpreted as a sign of divine favor for the Romans
Right.
and for Marcus Aurelius' leadership.
Of course.
Some attributed it to Jupiter, the king of the gods.
While others credited Mercury, the messenger god,
Right.
with delivering rain clouds at Jupiter's command.
Interesting.
I wonder what Marcus Aurelius himself made of it.
Right.
Did he see it as a sign from the gods?
Yeah.
Or was he more inclined to see it as a fortunate natural event?
Well, based on his Stoic beliefs, it's likely he saw it as a manifestation of the logos,
The logos.
the rational principle that governs the universe.
Okay.
Stoics believed that everything happens for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
and even seemingly random events are part of a larger cosmic order.
Okay, so even something as dramatic as a battlefield miracle
Right.
could be incorporated into his Stoic worldview.
It could.
It's a reminder that his philosophy wasn't just an abstract set of ideas.
No.
It was a way of life that helped him make sense of the world,
Exactly.
even in the most chaotic of circumstances.
Absolutely. And speaking of chaos, the Marcomannic Wars weren't the only challenge Marcus Aurelius faced during this period.
Oh no, what else?
He also had to deal with a devastating plague,
Another plague.
possibly a recurrence of the Antonine Plague that had ravaged the empire earlier in his reign.
So on top of waging war, he was also grappling with a deadly pandemic. It
Mm.
seems like one crisis after another.
It was a relentless period of his reign.
Yeah,
The plague, coupled with the ongoing wars, put immense strain on the empire's resources, manpower, and morale.
I can't even imagine.
And it must have taken a toll on Marcus Aurelius personally,
Oh, I bet.
both physically and emotionally.
Yeah.
In addition to the burdens of leadership, he also experienced personal loss during this time. His wife Faustina died in 175 AD while he was campaigning in the north.
Oh, wow.
The cause of her death is uncertain, but it was a profound blow to Marcus Aurelius.
To lose his wife while facing all those challenges must have been incredibly difficult.
It must have been.
How did he cope with such a personal tragedy
Yeah.
amidst all the turmoil?
Well, it's hard to imagine the depth of his grief,
Yeah.
but his Stoic philosophy likely provided him with some solace and guidance. Stoicism emphasizes accepting what you can't control, and death being an inevitable part of life falls squarely into that category.
It's a reminder that even emperors with all their power and wealth are not immune to the pain of loss and grief.
That's right. It speaks to the universality of human experience.
Yeah.
Regardless of one's station in life.
We all experience those same
We do.
basic human emotions.
Yes.
But Marcus Aurelius's trials weren't over yet.
Oh, no.
He faced another major challenge,
Oh, dear.
one that struck at the very heart of his authority,
Okay.
a rebellion.
A rebellion. Ah, yes, the rebellion of Avidius Cassius.
Oh, yeah.
This was a significant event
It was.
that really tested Marcus Aurelius's leadership and his commitment to his Stoic principles.
Avidius Cassius, wasn't he one of Marcus Aurelius's most trusted generals?
He was?
Why would he rebel against the emperor?
Well, the exact reasons for Cassius's rebellion are unclear, but it seems like a combination of factors contributed to his decision.
Yeah.
There were rumors circulating that Marcus Aurelius was ill and possibly dying, and some sources even suggest that Cassius received false reports of the emperor's death.
So he thought he saw an opportunity to seize power.
It's likely he saw a power vacuum,
Yeah.
and he decided to take advantage of the situation.
I mean, makes sense.
He was a skilled military leader,
Okay.
and he had the support of legions in the east.
So a legitimate threat.
He was.
This must have been a huge betrayal for Marcus Aurelius.
It must have been.
How did he react to this challenge to his authority?
Well, he responded with a mix of firmness and clemency.
Okay.
He prepared to march east with his armies to confront Cassius.
Mm-hmm.
But before he could set out, Cassius was assassinated
Oh, wow.
by one of his own officers.
Really?
Yes.
So the rebellion was quickly put down.
It was?
But I imagine the experience must have left Marcus Aurelius feeling disillusioned
Oh, I'm sure.
and perhaps even questioning the loyalty of those around him.
It's understandable that he would have felt betrayed, and perhaps even a bit jaded after an experience like that.
Yeah.
But despite the threat Cassius posed, Marcus Aurelius chose to show mercy.
Really?
He pardoned Cassius's family and dealt leniently with those who had supported the rebellion.
That's a surprising act of forgiveness,
It is.
especially considering the potential threat to his rule.
It speaks to his character and his Stoic beliefs.
Okay.
Stoicism emphasizes forgiveness and understanding, recognizing that even those who do wrong are often driven by misguided beliefs or passions.
So instead of seeking revenge, he chose to restore harmony and unity within the empire.
Exactly. He understood that punishing those involved in the rebellion would only create more division and resentment.
Right.
By offering forgiveness, he aimed to heal the wounds and move forward.
That's a powerful example of how his philosophical principles influenced his actions as a leader.
It is.
He wasn't just paying lip service to Stoicism.
Yeah.
He was actively trying to live by its ideals.
He was.
Even when it was difficult. And it wasn't just in his handling of the rebellion that his Stoicism shone through.
Right.
Even as he continued to face challenges on the northern frontiers.
Mm-hmm.
With the Marcomannic Wars dragging on, he continued to write his meditations,
He did.
reflecting on his experiences and seeking guidance from his philosophy.
Amazing.
So amidst all this turmoil,
Right.
wars, plagues, a rebellion, the loss of his wife, he found solace and strength in writing and reflecting on Stoic principles.
He did. It's truly remarkable.
It is.
And it's one of the reasons why the meditations continue to resonate with readers today.
Yeah.
They offer us a glimpse into the mind of a man who faced extraordinary challenges with remarkable resilience and wisdom.
Speaking of the meditations,
Yes.
I think it's time we delve into them a bit deeper.
Okay.
What are some of the key insights and themes that emerged from Marcus Aurelius's writings?
That's an excellent suggestion. In the next part of our deep dive, we'll explore the wisdom of the meditation and discuss how Marcus Aurelius's reflections on virtue, reason, and the nature of the universe can still offer guidance and inspiration in our modern world.
We've covered a lot of ground in our deep dive into the life and reign of Marcus Aurelius.
We have.
From his unusual rise to power
Right.
to the wars and plagues and rebellions that tested his leadership.
Definitely.
But what really fascinates me is his ability to remain grounded in his Stoic philosophy amidst all that chaos.
It's truly remarkable.
It is. He wasn't just a philosopher in theory. He was actively trying to live out his Stoic ideals in the most challenging and demanding role imaginable.
I mean, to rule an empire and be a philosopher at the same time,
It's incredible.
it is.
And that brings us to his meditations,
Yes.
which offer us a unique glimpse into the mind of an emperor who is also a
For
philosopher.
a very unique perspective.
What can we learn from these personal reflections
Yeah.
that can help us navigate our own lives, even though we're not running an empire?
Well, for starters, the meditations remind us that even emperors have bad days.
Oh, I bet.
Marcus Aurelius struggled with self-doubt, frustration, and anger just like the rest of us.
So he wasn't some superhuman figure
No,
who's immune to stress or negative emotions.
not at all. He was human just like us.
Okay.
But he had a set of tools that helped him deal with the inevitable challenges of life.
And those tools being his Stoic principles.
Exactly. And that's what makes the meditation so relatable.
Right.
He grapples with very human concerns, how to deal with difficult people, how to accept loss, how to find meaning in a world that often seems chaotic and unfair.
I think a lot of people today can relate to that feeling of chaos and uncertainty.
Absolutely.
We're bombarded with information,
Right.
facing complex global challenges, and often feel overwhelmed by the pace of modern life.
That's why the meditations are so relevant today.
They offer solutions.
They do. Marcus Aurelius's insights into human nature and the nature of the universe offer timeless wisdom that can help us navigate our own challenges,
Right.
even if those challenges look very different from the ones he faced.
What are some of the key Stoic principles that emerge from the meditations?
Okay.
How can we apply those principles to our own lives?
Well, one of the core principles of Stoicism is focusing on what you can control.
Okay.
Marcus Aurelius reminds us that we can't control external events like the weather, the economy, or other people's actions.
We can't control everything.
We can't. But we can control our own thoughts, emotions, and reactions.
So instead of getting stressed out about things we can't change, we should focus on what we can actually influence,
Exactly.
our own attitude and behavior.
Precisely. Another key principle is accepting what you can't control.
Okay.
This doesn't mean passively resigning yourself to fate,
Right.
but rather recognizing that there are things in life that are beyond our influence.
It's about letting go of the need to control everything
Yes.
and finding peace in accepting the things we can't change.
Right. Stoicism also emphasizes living in accordance with nature. This means recognizing that we're part of a larger interconnected web of life, and that we should strive to live in harmony with the natural order of things.
I can see how that principle could be applied to modern environmental concerns.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a reminder that we're not separate from nature, but rather deeply embedded in it.
Exactly. And finally, Stoicism emphasizes virtue as the ultimate good.
Virtue.
This means living a life guided by reason, justice, courage, and wisdom.
So it's not just about personal happiness or success. It's about striving to be a good person
Right.
and make a positive contribution to the world.
Exactly. And for Stoics, virtue is its own reward.
Okay.
Living a virtuous life leads to inner peace and fulfillment,
Okay.
regardless of external circumstances.
It's a powerful message,
It is.
especially in a world that often seems obsessed with material wealth and superficial success.
It's a reminder that true happiness comes from within, from living in alignment with our values and principles.
I'm curious about what happened in the final years of Marcus Aurelius's life. He was still campaigning against the Germanic tribes in the north when he died in 180 ADA, wasn't he?
He was. He died at Vindobona, modern-day Vienna,
Okay.
at the age of 58.
Okay.
The exact cause of death is uncertain, but it's possible he succumbed to the plague that was still ravaging the empire.
So even the great philosopher king couldn't escape the fragility of human life.
It's a reminder that no matter how powerful, wealthy, or wise we are, we're all subject to the same ultimate fate.
Yeah, it really puts things in perspective.
It does.
And it speaks to the Stoic emphasis on accepting death as an inevitable part of life.
Absolutely.
Now, Marcus Aurelius's legacy is a bit complicated, isn't it?
It is.
He's remembered as a wise and just ruler, a philosopher king who tried to embody his Stoic ideals.
He did.
But his choice of successor, his son Commodus, was a disastrous one.
It was Commodus abandoned his father's principles,
Oh, no.
indulging in extravagance, cruelty, and tyranny.
Really?
He squandered the empire's resources, neglected his duties, and alienated the Senate.
So the opposite of his father.
Pretty much. His reign marked the beginning of the decline of the Roman Empire.
It's a stark reminder that even the most well-intentioned leaders can make mistakes.
They can.
And those mistakes can have far-reaching consequences.
Absolutely. It raises questions about the limits of even the most enlightened leadership.
Yeah.
Can one person, no matter how wise or virtuous, truly change the course of history?
It's a great question.
Or are we all ultimately subject to forces beyond our control?
Those are questions that philosophers and historians have been grappling with for centuries.
Centuries!
But despite the tragic irony of Commodus's reign,
Right.
Marcus Aurelius' legacy endures,
It does.
largely through his meditations.
The meditations continue to inspire readers centuries after they were written,
They do.
offering timeless wisdom on how to live a good life, even in the face of adversity.
So what's the ultimate takeaway from our deep dive into the life and philosophy of Marcus Aurelius?
I think it's this. We all have the capacity for wisdom, virtue, and resilience, regardless of our circumstances. We can choose to focus on what we can control, accept what we can't, and strive to live in accordance with nature and reason.
And by doing so,
We can find meaning, purpose, and even joy in the midst of life's inevitable challenges.
it's a powerful message,
It is.
and one that's particularly relevant in our complex and often turbulent world.
Definitely.
So if you're looking for guidance on how to navigate these challenging times, I highly recommend checking out Marcus Aurelius's Meditations.
Me too.
You might be surprised at how relevant and insightful his words are, even though they were written nearly 2,000 years ago.
Absolutely timeless wisdom.
And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive.
I think we have.
Thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of Marcus Aurelius.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, intrigue seekers, stay curious and keep seeking wisdom wherever you can find it.